Hey guys, it's Classic. Welcome to Automobilista 2. I picked this up the other day and I've been having so much fun with it. I'm absolutely loving it. What I want to do today is just work on a few baseline setups for a couple of cars and tracks, because I've been finding jumping from on multiplayer servers and jumping around GT3 in different tracks, a lot of the default setups don't have a very good baseline in terms of the tires, in terms of pressures and even temperatures. So I want to take you along and show you kind of what I do. I don't know whether it's right or wrong, but we're just going to head out, do a few laps, and then hopefully come back in and we'll look at what we're going to tweak and how we're going to tweak it. Okay, so I've done a few laps and we'll pull back in the pits, and you can see from this screenshot I took, which is using the kind of the debug HUD option, it's left on my D-pad, and you can kind of bring this up as you're driving. And so unfortunately you have to kind of take a screenshot of this just before you reset to the pits, because you can't get access to it once you return to the pits. And this is kind of where the crucial information is. Now, this is in the summer. And so if we look at a previous example, this was late autumn, I believe like September time. We was running a race at Monza, and this is in Fahrenheit, not Celsius in this screenshot, and it's also in PSI, not bar. But if you look at the front right tire, you can see how cold it is. In our example right here with the Porsche, because we're at middle of summer and the middle of the day, track's well rubbered in, we've got ambient temperature of 32 and track temperature of 43. There is still some slight issues with the setup, but it's nowhere near as pronounced as in the cold. Again, it's very similar to the previous screenshot, where it's mostly the front right here that's kind of, it's not nowhere near as pronounced, but it's slightly colder and slightly less even than the other tires. So we've got an outside temperature of 67 degrees and inside of 74. And if you look at the rear left, we've got a maximum temperature of 80, and it was peaking a little bit higher than that, so at sort of 82, 83 as we was driving around. So what I'm going to do is I've gone into the edit setup section, and if we go to suspension here, then I'm going to untick a symmetrical setup, and that allows me to then adjust the sides independently of each other. And so what I want to try and do is, there's two things that we can do here to alter this. The first is to adjust the pressures itself, which will help to kind of maintain that temperature in the tire. Again, if we look at a screenshot and we just compare the two front tires, we've got 1.57 on the left and 1.55 on the right. So effectively we could kind of increase the right by 0.2 bar and get an even sort of 157 across the front tires. And then the second thing we're going to do is we're actually going to decrease the amount of camber on the front right to stand the tire up a little bit more, which should hopefully get us a little bit extra temperature on the far extreme. Because what's happening at the minute is, because we had one with 3.6 degrees of negative camber, that's leaning the tire to the inside. So that's why the outside of the tire is a little cooler, because it's lifted slightly from the racetrack compared to the inside. So if we decrease that camber angle, straighten up that wheel, that should hopefully give us a slightly more even temperature across the tire. And the reason this is happening basically is just, it's a factor of the racetrack. There's a lot of right hand corners, and so that means the car's leaning on the left hand side and the right hand side sort of in the air more, or it's unloaded a lot less than the left, and so that's why we're seeing this kind of discrepancy. When it comes to the rear left, there's less things we can do easily to help this tire out effectively. Other things might be reducing the brake ducts on the rear, so we could open essentially these rear brake ducts to get more cool air into the rear brakes to keep them cool, which would then create less temperature radiation through the wheel and into the tire. But if we look at the rear right tire, we're at 73, 73 and 71 degrees on the temperature, and again we're at the 1.54 bar, so we're pretty sound on that. So this example is fine tuning, absolute fine tuning, compared to the previous screenshot in September, where we had like a much bigger swing with the tires. And this is where I'm finding that these tweaks will be kind of more useful is when we get away from the summer months, away from these high track temperatures, and to where you need to make sure that you've got a decent baseline or a good understanding of how much PSI you need in certain ambient and track temperature conditions to bring you up to speed. Okay, so just to highlight that point, I've jumped into the same track, the same car, the same setup, but now we're in January instead of July. And if I just flick to it here, look how cold the tyres are. Same setup, same pressures, same camber, everything, and yet the tyres are just, they can't keep the temperature. And that's because the track temperature is 35 degrees less than it was in the July session. So you can see just how much you have to increase the pressures here to get a similar operating temperature of sort of 80 degrees. And so that swing is huge, and especially, you know, when you join online sessions, you don't know what dates people are going to have, so it's well worth looking at just to ensure that you've got, you know, decent temperature in the tires at all time, because even the default setup will leave you with extremely cold tires in these temperatures. So I hope some of you guys found this helpful. I'm no expert in it at all, but it's something I like to do to know that, you know, if I've got nice even temperature, nice even wear across the tires, I can jump into any multiplayer race. If it's 20 minutes, 40-minute race, doesn't matter. I know that baseline's there, I'm gonna have good tire wear, and if I'm late to qualifying and I don't quite get into dialing everything in, I'm ready to go, and I'm gonna be, you know, a little bit more competitive maybe than I was before. But just knowing a few things like pressure, camber, the brake ducts, those few things can have, you know, a big effect on just getting the tires in the right window, so then you've got optimum grip, right, in the optimum conditions, and you can just get out there and enjoy some racing. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm enjoying Automobilista 2. I think it's great. I'm gonna have so much more fun. We've got loads more cars and tracks to explore, and yeah, I'll see you guys next time.